Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Noyes. I'm the Neighborhood Resilience Advisor with our Wellington Community Services team. And roughly what my job involves is looking after community connection in the city. And so all the things that bring us together as people in the places that we live and help us form social support networks and help us feel a part of our society. And that manifests in a whole bunch of different pieces of work.
So, hi everyone, I'm Clare Lundon. I'm in the comms and engagement team. I'm a senior engagement advisor, and my role is to support the organisation to connect with community, and in particular help them reach the community when there's decisions that they can influence. So we're sitting down because I'm really nervous, but we're just going to have a conversation, Mark and I, about community. In the context of what we've heard from John, Chris, and in particular from Liam, growth's coming, our city is growing, and we're going to see more diverse people in our communities and in our suburbs living closer together. And given that we're still experiencing and trying to understand the effects of COVID, what do you see as some of the opportunities for business in this new exciting future?
Well, I think for me, I really frame the ideas around our communities in terms of proximity and how easy it is for people to connect. And one of the things that we've seen in the last year and a half in particular is this, increased prominence of the local place, and there are a lot of kind of imperatives around that, from what Liam said about the cities need to grow, people need to live somewhere. We have climate change that is driving kind of a lot of necessary change in our city and so on and so forth. But it also opens up kind of a lot of opportunities. With increased density comes increased, customers essentially. But people are walking the streets, like Liam said. They're having these opportunities to encounter each other. They're having these opportunities to kind of randomly chance upon a shop and kind of go in and form a relationship. But one of the framings that I think is really useful is the concept of the 15-minute city that Paris is doing, or the 20-minute neighborhood that is quite prominent in Australia at the moment. And these are deceptively simple concepts that talk about just proximity, how easy it is to get all of your daily needs met close to where you live. But when you actually dig into that, what it's going into is, can you go down and walk to a place to find food, to walk to your school, to walk to see beauty, experience nature, and all of these things that are really fundamental to kind of our healthy functioning as human beings. But the other aspect that it doesn't specifically talk about is that while we're doing that, we're open to social connections. These chance encounters with people, we're accessible to other people. And so when we're walking down to the shop to buy our groceries, we're going there repeatedly. And through that process, we encounter other people on a regular basis who are doing the same thing. We become familiar with them. We become familiar with the shop owners. And that opens us up to a whole range of relationships that encourage us to continue doing that. So it's a cumulative and kind of exponential effect that really underpins that community well-being. And I think, to kind of go back to what the opportunity there is for businesses, as this focus on the local place grows, there's that increased opportunity to reach an increasingly diverse group of people who live there, to kind of pivot businesses in ways that you weren't able to because those people weren't living in the community before. So it increases the business opportunities, but it increases kind of your opportunities for connection and relationship as a business owner, and increases kind of the potential to like sustain the business because there are more people there actually patronizing the business. So.
A lot of my community experience is in the sport and recreation sector, and I look at the potential for relationships between the businesses and the sport and recreation at a local level. The opportunities that can arise from a conversation between the junior coordinator and the local supermarket manager, there's huge potential there. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that oftentimes we create this false dichotomy of like business and community, and we like to kind of categorize things when in reality we're all people doing a whole bunch of different activities, and so businesses are very much a part of the communities that they are located in and around, and they're operated by people. They're operated by a lot of you, and you have kind of the same needs as everybody else. You're yearning for kind of relationship and connection and meaning and belonging and kind of all these things. And so when kind of we're looking at that interaction between communities and businesses, really businesses are very much a part of their community, and you see this playing out in really incredible ways. Like when I, as a customer, go into a business repeatedly, I build up that relationship. I get to know the shop owner. The shop owner gets to know me. He asked about my kids. He, asked about kind of like what I did last week, and I, did the same thing with him. And then through that, there are these opportunities for the business to, they're getting my money because I have that connection. I like that interaction with the shop owner and so on. And I go back even if I don't specifically need to, and on the flip side, the shop owner has this opportunity to interact with their community in really incredible ways too. And I think one of the really cool examples that I encountered recently was up in Otaki with the Otaki riverbank kind of regeneration that's happening. Friends of the Otaki River have been in this long process of essentially reclaiming the riverbank. And there are some very pragmatic reasons, around flooding and so on and so forth, but also kind of around this desire to kind of have a more healthy place. And, so you have this very passionate group of individuals in their community. And so they started this process of reforesting the riverbank and creating beautiful places that draw people to it. And as their passion began to ooze out into the wider community, all of a sudden, all these businesses have wanted to kind of get on board, because you have these people who are actively making the place better, who are drawing people to the place. And that has kind of all those additional benefits to the local businesses. So you see these tracts of land all along the riverbank where like local businesses have sponsored the planting. They've contributed financially to the planting because there's this reciprocal relationship between the businesses and their community.
When we look at the 20-minute city model, can you think of a local or national example where the community is achieving some of this vision and has the potential? And you've just talked about Otaki as an example, but perhaps you could tell us about something locally where we can see this sort of thing happening already and has potential to get even better.
Yeah, I think that there are two examples that come to mind immediately. Newtown is always the easy example because there's a lot happening in Newtown, and Newtown is kind of fairly geographically constrained. But you also have places like Burrampore, places like Miramar, where kind of you have a fair number of people living close to kind of the center area. They're able to walk down there, and there's a diversity of kind of shop offerings there. And so kind of we're starting to increasingly get the situation in a lot of our town centers where someone could feasibly get a lot of their needs met there. Newtown, you can basically spend all of your time in Newtown. And you'd kind of want this vision for a lot of our centers to be places where people could spend the vast majority of their time, could sort of get the vast majority of their daily needs met there, kind of in the whole range of health through kind of social, through kind of economic needs. And I think that that's the direction that we're heading, and that's kind of what people generally want too.
Yeah, cool, thank you. I'm looking forward to moving to Newtown. If you were to think about two areas where business can make a great impact on community, and just leaving this conversation, what would the two areas you would encourage business to look at?
I think it's really leaning into that increased opportunity around relationship that that sort of this reorientation or this restructuring of our society to kind of focus on our place involves. And so, I talked about kind of all the benefits that brings, but I'd say, that's something that when there's a draw of everybody out of your community, the community is kind of left impoverished. And when people come back, they're left time poor and tired, and they've sort of spent themselves elsewhere. And one of the things that's happening now, kind of through lockdown and, through sort of some of these imperatives that I discussed is, people want to kind of give more of themselves to their place. And that's really something that you guys can lean into, to kind of say, well, we're here. You can kind of give yourselves here and stuff like that, So invest in that continued sort of like development of your place as sort of that holistic thing that can allow people to get all their needs met in that place. And I think the second one would be, kind of like that idea of you as the activity that draws people to a center. You in a very real sense are anchor points that people moor themselves to. So you're kind of that point of consistency that people come back to again and again and again, that really helps build that kind of cohesive sense of community in a place. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. We're going to leave it there.